Simplifying algebraic fractions is not as difficult as you think they are. In this lesson, I'm going to be proving that to you by showing you how to add and subtract algebraic fractions in an easy way. My name is Justice Johnson from Lagos, Nigeria, and I want to welcome you to my maths channel, Maths Fusions. This is a channel where we teach you mathematics and make it so easy for you to learn. Now, if you are just joining us for the first time, if you are new in this channel, I want to encourage you to please subscribe. Subscribe to my channel. Help me to build this channel so that I can reach out to many people and help them to overcome their fear or phobia they have in mathematics. You can also like our videos, comment on them, share them with your friends, and please help us to tell more people about this channel that they should come in here to be learning maths in an easy way. Now, let us get right into the lesson. This is the part 5A of this lesson on it's a series where we've been looking at simplifying algebraic expressions or fractions to their lowest terms. So in this first example here, we have that simplify 3mn upon 2m squared plus 2n squared plus 5mn upon 3m squared plus 3n squared. Now, the very first place we are going to start from is to observe the denominator. You see, the ones we'll be dealing with so far, especially in part 4 of this series, is a binomial denominator without powers. But now, here we are having the binomial denominators with powers. How are we going to solve problems like this? Let's get started. Now, the very first thing we do is to write out our solution. Okay. And then we'll write this question again. So we have 3mn all upon 2m squared plus 2n squared. Then we write our plus 5mn all upon 3m squared plus 3n squared. Now, the very first thing you will observe here is in the first fraction, you can see that there is a 2 in the first term and there is a 2 in the second term. We are going to factorize out that 2 in front of m squared plus n squared. So this, in the next step here, we shall have 3mn, then we will align. Then we are bringing out the common factor, which is 2. And then in doing so, we introduce our bracket and write n squared plus n squared. See? So by the time you remove this 2 from here, here we have what? M squared plus what? N squared. Now we do the same thing for the second algebraic fraction, which is this. We bring out our 3 because 3 is common. So write it out as 3, then open bracket, m squared plus n squared. All right, that's the first step we take, okay? Now, in the next step, still at the denominator, if you observe, you see that we are having two denominators that are exactly the same. In other words, we have n squared plus n squared that is common to both denominators. So we are going to use the method that I introduced in part 4. If you have not watched our part 4 series, please, after this lesson, I will encourage you to go do so immediately. Now, we are going to bring out our m squared plus n squared at the denominator. So we'll rule a short line here. Then we bring out our n squared plus n squared. We'll leave it in the bracket. Then what comes up here at the numerator? That is where we now have to observe the numerators that are here. You observe that in the first numerator we have mn. Then in the second one we have what? Mn. What does that tell you? It tells you that mn is common. So we are going to bring them out. So up here we are going to write our what? Mn. Then we go on ahead to introduce our bracket. Now for the first content of the bracket here, what do? Realize that m squared plus n squared has been removed. And also our mn has been removed. So if we place our fingers here, you will see that if I place my finger here, we are going to be having 3 upon 2. So what will remain in here will become 3 upon 2. Then we introduce the sign plus, and we'll do the same thing here. This mn has been removed, the denominator has been removed, so we left it what? 5 upon 3. So write out our 5 upon 3. since we have factorized out this and this. Okay, now the next thing we are going to do now is to simplify the content of this bracket here. How do we do that? We look for their LCM. So once again, we write out our n squared plus what n squared, as you seen me do here. Then we put in our bracket. Then we rule our line this way. Now the LCM of 2 and 3, by now you know that is what? 6. Then if you divide 6 by 2, the answer is 3 times 3. That gives us what? 9. Then plus, do the same thing here. 3 into this is 2. 2 times this is what? Is 10. Alright, so that is what we got here. So finally, okay, we are going to have mn all upon, then we have m squared plus n squared. Then this is multiplying, the bracket means multiplication, okay, by the result we have here, which is 9 plus 10, that will give us 19. Then 19 upon what? Upon 6. So if we put this together, it will make us to arrive at 19 times mn will give us 19 mn, all divided by 6 times m squared plus n squared will give us 6 into bracket m squared plus n squared will close the bracket. So that is going to be the answer to this first example. I'm really sure you understood the concept here. Okay, let us quickly take the next example. Now in this next example, as you can see, we have here, let's quickly take the solution. Okay, so we take our solution. All right, so we rewrite this question out again. So we say 7c plus 2d, then divide this by, bracket 2c plus d all squared. Then we'll write our minus, then we'll write our 3, then we open a bracket, then we put in our 2c plus d in here. Now once again, if you observe the denominators, you will see that we are having a 2c plus d all squared, then here also 2c plus d, okay? But you will realize that the numbers in the values in the content of the bracket are exactly alike. The only difference you observe is that in the first denominator here, we have 2 as a power. Then in the next denominator, we're having what? 1 as a power. Now I can go on ahead to use the l.c.m method, but like as I said before, this is a channel where we show you the easy way to go about solving maths problem. So what I'm going to do now is to still introduce the concept I used in part 4, and I just used it not quite long in the first example. I'm going to introduce it here. And what is that concept? We are going to factorize the denominator because the terms at the denominator, they are the same. Now when factorizing the denominator, we are going to choose the lesser power, that is 2c plus d power what? 1, which is the lesser power. We are going to bring it out. So here we say equals to, then we rule a short line, and in the short line we are going to bring out the lesser factor here, which is what? 2c plus d. Then at the numerator, you realize that at the numerator there is no common factor between the numerators. So if there is no common factor, you simply put 1 at the top there. Then you can introduce your brackets. Okay, now what are we going to be left with here? We are going to be left with what? 7c plus 2d all divided by, now take note, in this case now we are having 2c plus d power 2. Don't forget that there is a denominator here, 2c plus d power 1. So if we remove 2c, one of these 2c plus d, okay, all you have to do is to subtract the power here and the power here. Don't forget, here we have all this to power what? 1. So 2 minus 1 will give us 1. That means we are having 2c, one of the 2c plus d at the denominator here. So write our 2c plus d here. Then minus 3. Then this your 2c plus d has been factorized out. So in its place you'll be left with just what? 1. That's what to be left with. Alright, so now that we've gotten to this level, the next thing for us to do is to clear the brackets here by taking the LCM. So in the next step, I'm going to be showing us that. So we write out what is outside the brackets here, which is the h.c.f. We write out our 1 upon what? 2c plus what? Plus d. Then we introduce our bracket this way. Then we rule our line because we are about taking our what? Our LCM. So the LCM of 2c plus d and 1 will give us 2c plus d. Then if we cancel 2c plus d and 2c plus d, you have 1. If you want to multiply everything here, it will give us what we have there, 7c plus 2d. Then minus, you see, in this case now, there is no denominator for us to use in dividing this except 1. So which means we are using 2c plus d to multiply our 3. Then that will give us 3 into bracket 2c plus what? Plus d. Then we close the bracket. Now in the next step, we are still retaining what is outside the bracket here, which is what? 2c plus d. Then in the bracket, we are going to solve every common terms that we have. Now you realize that we have 7c, and along the line we have to expand this, okay? So we'll write out our 7c then plus 2d. Now we use our minus 3 to times, the bracket means times, okay? Minus 3 times 2c will give us minus 6c. Then minus times plus will give us minus, all right? Then 3 times d will give us 3d. We can go to close the bracket and write out the denominator here as 2c plus d. Now in the next step, we still retain what is outside, which is what we have here as 1 upon 2c plus d, okay? Then we come in here, we rule our line, okay? Then 7c, you realize that as you go along the line here, you see that we're also having another c here. So 7c minus 6c, that will give us 1c. So we have c, then plus 2d minus 3d, that is 2 minus 3 will give us minus 1d. Then at the denominator, we still have 2c plus what? Plus d. Now, we are going to write out the final result by multiplying this into the bracket here. So 1 times, multiply our denominators, 1 times c minus d will give us c minus d. Then we rule our line. Then if you observe, 2c plus d is multiplying 2c plus d. That is, they are multiplying each other. It's as though we are saying x times x, which will give us what? X squared, okay? So which means if we multiply these two values, we are going to have, we introduce a bracket, 2c plus d, and then we take the square of that. So that is going to be the answer to this question. I believe this solution is quite easy for you. Now, to wrap it up for our lesson today, we are going to take a third example, which is going to be the final example for this lesson. Now, if you observe what we have here, let's just take the solution quickly, okay? Okay. Now, we write out these values like we have it there. We say our a plus b, then all upon, here we have our a minus 2b all squared. Then here we have minus what? We rule our line. Then we'll do this, and then we'll write our 2b minus a. Now, a closer observation at the denominator, you will see that at the denominator, what we are having in the second denominator is the opposite to what we have in the first denominator. Okay, we treated this in part 4. All right. So here we have positive a, here we have negative a, here we have negative 2b, while here we have positive 2b. So we have to invert this. We have to swap position, and then in doing so, the sign will change to the opposite. So we quickly come here, we put in our equals to sign, we write the first fraction, which is a plus b all upon into bracket a minus 2b all squared. Then we change the minus sign to plus, right? And then we interchange this to become exactly like this. So we'll have our a minus 2b. So that's the first thing you do. Now, of course, you should know what we are going to do here now, okay? Because we just finished example 2, and it's the same method we are going to be using solving this. So if you check here, if we put this way, you see that the power is what? 1, all right? So we are going to factorize out our a minus 2b, because a minus 2b is common. So in the next step, I'm going to show you just that. We rule our line, then we factorize our a minus 2b. We choose a lesser power, okay, which is what? A minus 2b. Now, what are we going to write at the top here? If you compare the numerators, a plus b and 1, there is no common factor between them except what? 1. So write out the 1 on top of this place, then we introduce our bracket. Now in getting the content of the bracket, you already know what we do here, okay? We subtract the power of this base in the factor here, 1, from 2. So 2 minus 1 is 1. That means we are going to have one of these, a minus 2b, still remaining there. Then the number on top of it is what? A plus b. Then here we have plus, then 1 upon 1. Why is it 1 upon 1? Because we have factorized out a minus 2b, and that's the a minus 2b you see down here, okay? Then we close our brackets. Now in the next step, we still write out our 1 upon a minus 2b. Then we introduce this bracket, rule our line. Then we take the LCM between a minus 2b and 1. And that, of course, will give us a minus 2b. Now, if you divide a minus 2b by a minus 2b, you have 1. Use the 1 to multiply a plus b. Any number multiplied by 1 will give us that number. So our a plus b will still remain here. Okay? Then we put our plus. Now, when we divide a minus 2b by 1, we still have a minus 2b. Then use it to multiply 1. We have a minus 2b. Okay. Now, in the next step, we still retain our 1 upon a minus 2b. Then we open our bracket, draw our line, and then we correct like terms. You can see here that a plus a will give us 2a. 2a, pardon me for that. That will give us 2a, all right? Then plus b minus 2b, that is 1b minus 2b will give us minus what? Minus b, okay? Then the denominator still remains there, a minus 2b. Now, in the final step for this lesson, we are still going to multiply now the numerators. 1 times 2a minus b will give us 2a minus b. Then, like we did in example 2, you can see that we're having the same numbers here, a minus b and a minus b, multiplying into each other. It is a case of saying a times a, and of course that will give us a squared. So all we have to do now is to write out our a minus 2b, then we close the bracket and raise it to 2. Okay, so that is going to be the final answer for this particular question. I'm sure you really followed me in this example, and you understood the steps that we are taking in solving all these problems. Please do let me know what you think about the steps the techniques that I use in making this easy for you to understand. Let me know your opinion. And if you have another opinion of yours you would like to share with me, I will really welcome it. Until then, I want you to remain blessed and stay safe. I will see you in my next class.